Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Kaizen Culture Pod, where we are keeping the conversation moving within Australian karate. This is the first ever episode of our Get to Know series, and I'll explain a little bit about it in the episode. But it's with the one and only Mish Wilson, superstar of the sport, and just an all-round legend of a person that's contributed so much to karate and the progression of the sport within Australia and the people in it. So it's an amazing first episode, I think, to have someone like Mish on board to have a little chat and to share with everyone a little bit about her journey and her story. So we sat down at the Nationals a couple of weeks ago, and you can tell by the recording it's quite loud and a little bit obnoxious with some of the sounds that's going on at national championships, but I think that makes it. So please forgive some of the audio. But other than that, I hope you really enjoy this episode because I enjoyed chatting with Mish. Yeah, without further ado, let's get to know Mish Wilson. I'm actually so nervous to do this. We've had so many chats before.
It's like you don't know me. I'm Michelle.
I don't know you. Okay, I'm going to make sure I get this right.
Go.
25 years representative.
Something like that. Why don't you ask me to introduce
Yeah,
myself?
that's true. Well, I want to list off the achievements, you know what I mean? All right. Okay, how am I going to start this? I haven't planned anything.
It's okay. Best things happen organically.
Yeah. All right.
Unless you're preparing for World Championships. Not so much that.
No, you got to think about that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, might as well get going.
Go.
So this is the first Get to Know episode series of the Kaizen Culture Pod.
So much pressure.
So much pressure, Michelle. So we got Michelle Wilson here. Say hello to everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I am also petrified.
Yep. Michelle, in brackets, Mish. Is it always been Mish?
Only Mish at karate. No one else calls me Mish.
Really?
Yeah.
So Michelle at home, Michelle at work,
home.
Mish at karate.
Yep.
I've got you in my phone as Mish, and I think, wow. Now, obviously we're doing this at the National Championships, and you can hear a lot of noises going along.
Best laid plans and all.
Yeah. So it's going to be a different podcast episode. So apologies for the background noise, but we're just going to have a nice chat and get to know you, Mish, because I feel like the karate community needs to embrace our sport and our athletes, and forgive me for saying this, our history. I'm not trying to say it that way.
Yep.
But you are a legend of the sport in Australia, and you've represented the country for 25 years.
Something like that, yeah.
11-time national champion as a senior, 3 Oceania gold medalist, 2-time Premier League medalist, former Australian captain, the inaugural chair of the athletes committee, and there was another little dot point down there, which was the full-time super mum. I think that's a really great thing that we want to get into afterwards. But
sure.
I guess a good place to start is just your background, your history, how you got into karate, and just how you were when you were growing up with your parents and your family.
So I started karate when I was 8.
Yep.
1989. I'm old, 43 I am. And Mum put my sister and I in for self-defence, like lots of, little kids that start karate. And I had zero intention of competing. My sister competed. I've got a little sister, our younger sister. She was a little sister at the time. And she went in a competition before me and came home with this absolute monster trophy that they gave to the under-10s. And I was like, well, I can't have my little sister, one-upping me. I might give this a crack. And didn't stop from there. I was Shotokan originally and loved kata more than I loved kumite, which is also quite hilarious as things turned out. Tried out for the state team in 1992, wasn't selected, thanks Sensei Bill. Those of you that are around the competition circuit, he's the one with the really long curly hair. he was the state coach at the time, and didn't think I was ready. He was probably right. I was 12 or 11 or something. Went to the Nationals in 93, and then was first selected for the Australian team in 95 for Oceania. Back then, when it was like an A team and a B team, and then in 96 went to the first WKF Junior World Championships in South Africa with a fairly big team with Branko as the national coach at the time, and the rest is, as they say, a bit of history.
Yeah,
I won't go into it all, but
we kind of have to go into a little bit of it. I know you're probably a bit uncomfortable talking about yourself, but I think it's super important that we all get to hear how you transverse through Australian karate. And I mean, the landscape of Australian karate, I think, is different now to when it was a couple of years ago. I mean, just talk about this A and B team.
We had different tracksuits. You had like an A team tracksuit and a B team tracksuit. There was two different tracksuits. Two different tracksuits. So at the time, like old school 90s, white parachute, big green stripe across if you were the B team, and then the A team had like the proper green and gold. So you kind of knew but it was something to aspire to. It was like a real point of difference, and really different time where there was no ranking points or things like that. So not that Oceania was less important, but it was kind of seen as the step before the World Championships and stuff like that.
I think it's really good to have that distinct separation. But did that cause anything in between the team?
I don't think so. Like, I think it was more just that aspiration, and it gave like a really visual, representation of the different squads and where people were, and totally different time, right? Like, there's no social media, there's no way of like announcing teams. It's just you're at a nationals or at an Aussie Open, and you can see the people walking around in the tracksuits, and they do a big deal presentation like we do now. But it was more about that was your pathway. Like, that's how you could see the pathway. So
that is good. Yeah. So did you spend a lot of time in that B team initially?
So we had. I think it was like around about December 95, we went to New Caledonia. Bruce Harlan was the coach for that team. And then it was pretty black and white, I guess, in terms of selection. So the next year at Aussie Open, I won, and Branko came up to me and said, if you win your division, there's the opportunity to go to the Worlds. We've got a camp. It's next week, at the AIS. And I jumped on a bus from Sydney, from the Whitlam Centre. Still same place as now. Still same smell as well, weirdly. So it was like, if you won, that was your pathway. We had a week long at the AIS. I mean, obviously, like most athletes, there's a bit of an up and down where you're selected one year, you're not selected the other year. I was, in the junior team up until I turned 18, and I'm from a single parent family. There's my mum, there was my grandma, my sister and I, so pretty close knit. They sacrificed a lot for me to be able to go to like a World Championships in South Africa. We went to like a Hayashiha style Worlds because there wasn't a Junior Worlds that following year in America, and then we went to one in Greece in 98, and then I finished school and wanted to do nutrition and dietetics. There wasn't that in Adelaide. I had the opportunity to either move to Victoria, Queensland or WA. Moved to WA because Brank was the coach.
Also, WA's the best.
There is that too. And it was at the time, like the idea of going to, Melbourne, such a big city compared to Adelaide. And I knew people, and obviously had trained with, Brank and stuff like that beforehand. But it also meant that I basically took 2 years off from international competition because WA's very far away from everywhere else, as it turns out.
The most isolated city in the world.
And just couldn't afford to do any competition outside of Australia for those 2 years, and then kind of got back into it after I saved some cash. I mean, that's one thing that hasn't changed over the years is you just, it's a very resource intensive sport, and so I just kind of managed my time that way, and fortunately, found myself in work where I could balance both. Super important, to find teachers or university lecturers or bosses that are supportive of your journey, because you are going to have to take a lot of time off, as you know, right? It's a balance.
It's a really unique situation.
Sometimes not an easy one.
It's so hard. And how do you sort of think it can change? I guess because you said it's been the same for forever.
Yeah.
We're in a very unique situation coming from Australia.
I mean, you guys are. guys and girls are in a unique situation in the situation that's evolved is there is social media, there's a platform. Stuff like this is amazing to get the word out there and to build a profile. Like, you know, early 90s, early 2000s, you're trying to get an article in the newspaper to try and get some attention or to get some sponsorship or those sorts of things. Now with social media, it's a little bit easier. But I think, you know, Karate Australia and the States, you know, we've got a bit of a responsibility to help build those profiles of the athletes and our sport. And it is changing slowly, but I think there's a lot of work across all sports that's happening around athlete wellbeing and career development and support, and remembering that a person's not just an athlete. They're an athlete and maybe they're a student, or they're an athlete and they're an employee, or they're an athlete and maybe a parent, as it turns out. And, you know, having that flexibility and policies and procedures and stuff that supports that. So, you know, I think over at the Olympics at the moment, nearly every sport has an athlete wellbeing person that's there as well as their coach, as well as the support staff. And maybe a little bit optimistically, but I'd like to think that in the not too distant future we have that as well.
Yeah, well, you're on the board right now, right? Do you sort of see yourself going down that pathway of an athlete wellbeing? Because I feel like you're very close to the athletes.
Yeah.
And
it's absolutely an area that I'm passionate about. I work in sport now, which has kind of happened accidentally, but I see the value of having that conduit between athletes, between the board, between coaches. And, you know, there's super uncomfortable conversations that sometimes have to be had between athletes and coaches, and it doesn't have to be that way, you know. I had that myself, you know, was petrified to tell the coaches that I was pregnant. That's crazy, right? I was also old and not sure if I was going to do karate again, but, you know, just those sorts of things where whether it's you're having trouble with, you know, with school, or, you know, you've got year 12 exams coming up and it clashes with something, just having someone that's a bit of a buffer, I think, is important, because you shouldn't be afraid, well, not afraid's not the right word, but you shouldn't be worried that who you are outside of your karate, you know, is going to impact on selection, when ultimately where karate is at the moment, it's not your job. It's not your full-time career, so you've got to balance the both,
hobby,
right? Yeah, that's it.
It is a glorified hobby that you spend lots of money. But it is,
right? You know, I'm still paying off my glorified hobby, and I've been retired for 18 months. But
I don't want to ask about that.
That's
because I'm headed down that way, and it's not looking good.
No, it's not. It's stay at home as long as you can is my recommendation. No. But yeah, I think I am passionate about that area. That's not a portfolio as such, you know, for the board at the moment, but it is something that's being discussed and it has been raised. Obviously, we did used to have a more formal athletes committee, which had its positives and negatives. Probably its execution wasn't ideal, and I chaired it, so, you know, I'll own that.
Was you like at the sort of spearhead of that initiative? Or?
Yeah, there was a few of us that came together at the time.
What year was this?
At the end of 2008. So there was a really good group of, I mean, they've always been good teams, but a really good group of athletes in 2008. And we went to We went to the World Championships in Tokyo, which was where the Olympics were. That's where I was going. But yeah, it was really obvious, I guess, the gap that existed between Australia and the other countries, and we were really passionate about, you know, how do we bridge that gap. We'd had people going off and doing some stuff overseas, which is great, but it wasn't strategic, and it's not connected. And again, like a time before social media where you're like literally emailing people or picking up the phone and trying to work out where's the best place to go. So just trying to have a bit more of coordination around that. And, you know, we went to the board at the time, or the executive at the time, and suggested it. They did an expression of interest. And then at the 2009 Nationals, they interviewed a whole bunch of people. And, yeah, I was lucky enough to be appointed the chair of that committee. Super hard to be in that role when it is, you know, a lot of the stuff that you're getting is challenging or is negative. And as it turned out, the following year was the year that a decision was made to take a really small team to the World Championships in Serbia. And, you know, history is history, but I wore the brunt of a lot of that because I was the chair and I was also one of the athletes that wasn't selected. So it's just that balance,
was it more
right?
like a complaints committee?
Yeah, it became a bit of a complaints committee. And there were people, that they were there for that were providing feedback that was constructive and positive, and then there was a lot of noise. And so it was just about trying to balance those two things, and that's hard, And I think we tried optimistically to have a representative from each state and territory, and sometimes they're not always the right people, right? I'm a big advocate of that, of having the right people in the right roles, and not necessarily because they're from the right place to tick a box, or because they're female, or because they're male, or whatever. I think it's particularly in a sport like ours where there's so few resources, you've got to have the right people in the right roles. And then it went on for a few years and kind of fell away a bit. And now there's, a bit of a passion to get it restarted. And whether that's me or somebody else, I just think that it's maybe best if it's led away from the athletes themselves, because it puts an enormous amount of pressure on you. And I just still really distinctly remember the weeks and months after the decision was made to take that small team in Serbia. I had people calling me and emailing me and texting me all the time, and it's a lot, right?
A lot for you.
You just and I felt it because I was living it myself, and then I was hearing from other people, and it was just instructors, coaches, all that sort of stuff. So that was hard. So I think it needs to be externally led, and I like the idea now of where a lot of sports have adopted that athlete wellbeing and development. So it's about Mitch Durham as the athlete and all the things that make Mitch Durham tick, whether he's a uni student or he's working or whatever, because everyone has their own, their own stuff.
It's so unique to everyone's situation, so you've got to take it case by case.
Yeah.
It's not like a factory where you can just treat everyone the same.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's not a one size fits all.
No.
Absolutely not.
We're going to do a bit of a different system here. We've got a few people that want to ask some questions.
Oh, here we go.
In the crowd. Obviously, I'm sure you can hear.
Is Rusty going to be one of those?
That's not a question. That is the MC. We're just hearing about the massive warm-up areas, but we've got a few people here. We'll just wait till the announcement's finished. Whoever wants to come and ask a question, who wants to go first? All right, wait 1 second. I'm going to turn this microphone on.
Thank you.
All right, so Sammy, can we hear you here?
I can, yeah.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Michelle, first let me tell you, I'm in awe. I love women in sport. I love women in sport who are passionate, enthusiastic, and just carry it through and spread their love to younger generations. So I just want to make a note of that. But Mitchell will tell you I'm very predictable. I'm a superstitious woman.
Oh, here we go.
I just want to know, through your competitive era, did you ever have a pair of lucky undies?
Oh, I was listening to the last podcast, so I know a little bit about this. No, I did not, but I went through a period of time where I wore my hair the same every time, and then stupidly, because I didn't realise this, I won my first nationals when I was blue, and so then I had it in my head that unless I was blue I wasn't going to win. And then it took a solid 12 to 18 months for me to realise that after you win, and if you're seeded, you're always at the bottom, and that's blue. So once I worked that out, I was around for a long time, so I did this wave of everything must be this, and then I did it doesn't matter, who cares? I tried not to be too superstitious because there's some things that you can't control.
Things that you can't control.
Nah.
Thanks.
And then when I became a mum, there was no chance of controlling anything.
Thanks so much, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, Abby.
We got another one from Tom.
Hi, Michelle. Tom Pettit here. Look, congratulations on an extraordinary and decorated career, and also many thanks for your give-back phase with Karate Australia. I'm very interested in your view in how we can expand participation rates, not just in sports karate, but more broadly, and particularly for young girls and women.
Yeah, it's tough, right? So I work in university sport at the moment, and that's the space where they talk about the participation cliff, right? You get to 18 and then everyone has life. I think for karate, it is about showcasing the breadth, because sports karate is not for everybody. I think that there is an opportunity for us to have, and it's actually in the strategic plan now for Karate Australia, to look at building profile and partnerships and showcasing all of karate, the sports side of it's great, but then the person that might be picking up karate for the first time in their 50s because they decided that they wanted to do something different. So I think that there is some of that. I think also there's the opportunity to, take regional areas. Like, it's great that we've come together for a national championships, but not everyone's going to be able to travel to the capital city, let alone a national. So is there opportunity to do those sorts of things? And I think, in terms of women and girls, it's a tricky space, right? We are not the same. And I distinctly remember a conversation with one of our coaches where I was like, you know what, not national coach, but, if you keep yelling at me and, like, revving me up the same way as you rev up the boys, I don't love that, right? And that's not a male or female thing, but particularly, like, for girls, there is that that nurturing element that happens. Like, we're all not the same. And I think girls take results to heart a lot more, is my observation. And as I said, I work across lots of sports, and I see the same with, like, our university basketball league team. They lose and they're like, oh, we suck. Why are we doing this? We shouldn't be here. Whereas boys are like, I'm going to show you. Like, I'm going to beat you next time. I'll get you next time. So I think just remembering those differences. And I think it's important for girls to see other girls or women that are doing well. Accidentally, that's what happened when I came back after having my girls, and I saw, like, Robbie Choi was competing when I was competing. She was at the end of her career. She went off and had, people that then ended up in my team, which is weird.
That's nuts,
Georgie.
Crazy.
But for whatever reason, didn't return. And so I like that element of it as well, is that hopefully I've shown people that you can, you can continue, whether you have a child earlier or later in life. I think they're probably the main things with that. My perspective to competition changed completely after having my kids. I gave a lot less of a crap than I did before. Because I had perspective, right? And I didn't have an easy pregnancy, and I, tried a number of times to have kids and those sorts of things. But I was devastated in 2010 when I wasn't selected, and I really thought that was going to be the end. And I was determined that I wasn't going to let somebody else determine my future, right? After a lot of crying, lots of months of tears, but when I had the girls, I was like, if I don't win, who cares? Like, I've got 2 beautiful kids at home. Karate doesn't define me as a person, and I think it's sad that it took me nearly my whole career to work that out. But yeah, it's just a different perspective. Yeah.
No, it's really, I really want to talk about the time between 2010 and 14 and with your girls and all that sort of stuff and coming back, but I feel like we've got a couple more questions about, so we're going to put a pin in that. Yeah. We've got asking a little question, let's go.
So how do you deal with the frustration of losing?
How do you deal with the frustration of losing?
Oh, it sucks. But I think it's important to acknowledge that it sucks. It's frustrating. I think what's really hopefully helpful is to see that this one performance doesn't define who you are as an athlete, right? You'll hopefully go on to have a super long career. And I think it's similar to footy or cricket or those sorts of things. You lose one week, you come back and have a go. So have a look at why, if get some feedback from people, but then plan for the future. And don't let the one point that you didn't score or the one cutter that you didn't win define who you are. That's my little bit of advice.
Does that answer your question?
Thanks,
nice.
Mate. Cute.
Couple more here. We've got Alexi's coming through. He's got a list.
He's got a list.
He's got a list of questions.
He's got some impressive hair, this guy.
Yeah, the hair is good.
So you've obviously had an extensive and fulfilling karate career.
It is.
And I'm sure it'd be hard to pinpoint just one. But what do you think your proudest moment in karate is?
I've got 2. I can't pick one. So in 2005, I won my first, I was 24, I won my first senior national championships. So I'd been competing for all of that time and hadn't won. I am sure, and Kamulia would probably have it written down somewhere, but I feel like I have the record for the most amount of nationals not won.
National silvers?
National silvers. So consistently, almost, I think I was in every final bar 2 my whole senior career.
Really?
But I didn't win until I was 24. And Branko, I think that was one of the last Branko's Shimbuns. He wrote a little bit about it. So that was one for me because the question before is about like how do you not get frustrated at losing? Like I was just like, am I just destined to be an eternal silver medalist?
The greatest second place.
Again. So that was one. And then I think the other was after I had my girls in 2014, I fought at the Aussie Open, maybe a little bit crazily because they were 4 months old. It's probably a bit stupid in hindsight. But I was like, you know what? I actually still really love this. And so I went on that year a couple of months later and went to the Premier League and came second, which is baffling. I mean, it was in Indonesia and it's perspective, but still.
Yeah, don't rain on the parade of a medal.
Yeah, that's it.
That's your rule.
It's the way.
That's your rule.
Correct, and it's the way in which the draw falls, and you've got to take advantage of all of those things.
Come on.
But yeah, I think that for me was, you know, a lot less pressure because I was like, you know, no one has any expectation of me. I've just given birth to 2 children. Like, people don't even expect me to be here. But I think that actually really helped. And it was the summary of a lot of hard work, I think, over a number of years.
Yeah, go Alexi. That's good. You got a couple.
I've got one more.
Who have you been collecting these from?
You're sweating. You're under the pump.
So you're talking about before about the change that you've seen over the time, like over your career in karate. What change in karate competition or the sort of establishment did you not expect and are happy to see?
It's a good question.
It's a great question.
It's
probably
layered.
a real like female sport focused question. So up until 2008, we only had 3 weight divisions for girls. It's like minus 53. I don't think I was minus 53 before I was 10 because I'm quite tall. Minus 60 and plus 60. And I was banging on for ages, as were lots of people. But like, why are there only 3 divisions for women? This is crazy. And I just kind of expected because, you know, it's a male-dominated sport and those sorts of things that it wouldn't change. But when it changed, one, it opens up that participation that we were just talking about for girls because there was only ever 3 spots for a World Championships for women and then 5 for the men.
Yeah,
it's like,
it's ridiculous.
You know, it's modern times, people. But yeah, so
What year was this?
So 2008 was the last time I fought as plus 60.
Yeah.
And then the following year it changed to the 5 weight categories. And because it's a big difference, right? Plus 60... Because this could be like someone that's just 63 kilos or some of those, you know, Scandinavian monsters that are, you know, 85 kilos.
Yeah, oh, wow, 85.
Some of them. So, yeah, I think that was good to see. And, you know, if there was a change that I didn't expect that I don't love, it's all the protective equipment. Like, I get it, but also at the same time, at senior level now, I just feel like it's not quite the same, but I'm old school.
No, I
We used to have no
agree.
shin pads. There was nothing better than, you know, a Morsha hit in the face. You knew that it scored.
Oh, I actually can't imagine that, hey. Oh, thanks, Alexa. That's good. Thanks for the
you.
questions. I thought we'd get those questions in now because there's a few people hanging around.
Nah, all good.
But yeah, I think it's really important to touch back on like the time that you were having kids, and then like, did you like expect it to happen the way it did? Did you intend to stop karate, or did you?
Yeah, I had no idea really. World champs are every 2 years, so you kind of know that you've got an off year to try and have
window.
kids if you want to have kids.
Yeah.
It's kind of how it works.
Such a crazy concept.
yeah.
That's just not even on my radar.
Yeah, because and also you're a boy, so you don't have to worry about it. So there was that, and yeah, I guess I'd had a bit of a rough road to parenthood before that, I guess, in terms of like not knowing if I wanted to be a parent. Do I want to be a parent? Is this going to happen for me? Like, you know, all those sorts of things. I didn't really expect. Like, I loved kids, couldn't necessarily, like, picture myself as a mum, especially a mum of girls, because I am totally not a girly girl.
I've been in that house,
and then I've now ended up with two girls. It's hysterical. But, yeah, I guess in 2012, after not being selected in 2010, I, you know, as I said, took a couple of months off. And when I decided that I was going to come back, I was like, right, I am going to make it impossible for them not to select me, and if I do all of those things and I'm not good enough, then that's so be it, right? Because it's really hard when you win everything in Australia and you don't get selected, you know, and I won't go into the ins and outs of the policy at the time, but, you know, it is what it is, water under the bridge. But I just thought I'm just going to go, as hard as I can, and focused really hard in 2011 and 2012, and had, good years, made the finals of the Italian Open, medalled at the US, got a couple of medals in Germany, in Berlin, and other bits and pieces. And so I was going really well in 2012. And then it all came crashing down at the World Championships, of all of the great places. And probably the 2 months before the Worlds, it's absolutely not an excuse, but I came to the World Championships not in the right headspace. I lost one of my really good friends to ovarian cancer a couple of months before. And, I think for me that was a bit of the performance wasn't great, but also, it's the stuff that happens outside your life where I'm like, Sarah didn't have the chance to have kids. She had to have full hysterectomy as part of her treatment. And I was like, maybe next year's the year that I'll give it a crack. Got some surprise twins, because there's no twins in my family, and identical twins is just an accident. Yeah. But I didn't know if I wanted to come back. I rang the coaches and said, look, I'm letting you know I'm not nominating this year. Told a couple of them, the reasons why. And I said, I want to keep the door open just in case, but no guarantees. And there's nothing online then even, and that's not even that long ago. But I remember seeing on Facebook that I reckon it was the Chinese girls or Hong Kong or somebody had come to the Aussie Open, and I wasn't at the Aussie Open because I had a belly full of babies. But I was watching it and I was so jealous. And so I was just like, I think I might have texted, Matt is my coach, and I think this is not the
missing?
end.
Was there something sort of inside, just
I think
can't be done?
I reckon if I'd had a really good performance in Paris in 2012 and I just wasn't good enough, I might have felt fulfilled. But I just felt like, because of all of the other things, I couldn't perform at my best. And so I was like, I reckon I'm going to be back. I don't know. And I ended up continuing on, sort of training throughout my pregnancy, not training karate, of course, but just keeping fit. And after my girls were born quite early. So they were in hospital for, I think, 10 weeks or so. So I kept myself busy in the gym just trying to rehab and do those sorts of things, because you can't be there all the time. You can't do anything. And then, I don't know. Thought I'll go to the Aussie Open, see how I go.
So good.
Yeah. And, are these two characters here? This is great.
We've got a few big names in the house here coming across to ask a couple of questions. We've got the two national coaches, Marco Menzanti and head coach Mark Golding. Is there a question from both of you, or is it just one? All right.
This is great.
Come to the stand.
Hold on to
you might have to bend down a little bit. So
it's only built for small people.
It was meant for the kids. You can lift it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Or just.
He's also got his big booming teacher voice,
there we go.
I feel like he'll be okay.
All right. So Mark Golding, head national coach.
Might have seen him once or twice before.
Yeah, you know this guy.
Hi Michelle, how are you?
I'm amazing.
Question. You were a long-serving national competitor, very successful national competitor. What would you attribute your longevity to?
It's a good question. I think, and we were talking a little bit about it before, I'm a bit of a stubborn character. And I think for me I just had this real burning desire to be the best version of me that I could be. As you would be well aware, I'm not a supernaturally talented athlete, but I'm a pretty hard worker and I'm pretty determined. And so I think for me that was probably what put me in a good position. I knew that I wasn't going to not be able to work super hard and enjoy success in the same way that maybe people that have a lot more natural talent than I do were. So I think it was probably that,
And then probably an extension to that, obviously, later on in your career, which is obviously, as I said before, very successful in terms of national medals, continental medals, Premier League medalists. The family came along, so you had to then obviously juggle that as well.
Yeah.
So how did you manage that space?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm actually not really, I don't know, other than it just happened. And I think lots of parents will say that. It is actually really a blur. But I'm super lucky, I've got an amazing family and support that helped out, and my mum would come and stay, at our house and look after the kids when they were little. The parents at the club would help out, with the girls, and I think...
Sorry.
It's all right. South Australia is a small team anyway, so everybody really, you know each other and you're living in each other's pockets. But without those karate mums at the time, it would have been super hard. I think I also operate my life in pretty distinct compartments, and so the way that some people say justify it, but for me, the way that it worked for me is I was a better mum to my girls because I was doing something that I was passionate about, and they've got no bloody idea what I did, They think Mitch is amazing, which he is, but I'm like, we used to do the same thing anyway. But, I think, I think it was about me being fulfilled, helped me be a good mum to them. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate that.
Do
we have a couple more questions on the board here for anyone? Ari?
No.
Doesn't want to ask a question?
Okay.
No? I think...
just watching. It's a cute hat.
It is a cute hat. It is very nice. Yeah, go ask for a question now. Come on. We've got a question coming through. Come now. You're not going to be on camera. You're not going to be on camera. It's just the voice. Just the voice. Come through. No.
I'm worried if she's nervous.
You're making everyone nervous, Michelle.
I know.
I didn't know you were that scary.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Wait, Nathan, 1 second. Wait, Nathan. Can you just the microphone? There we go. Nice. There we go. We've got to make sure we hear you.
Yeah.
Hi, Michelle. I have a question regarding injury.
Yes.
What's your advice on coming back from that?
Yeah.
And emotionally, mentally, and physically?
Yeah, it's tough, right? So it also depends, I guess, on the injury. I was pretty lucky throughout my career not to have like super major injuries until I did my ACL at my last nationals. Nice work. But I think really it's about being a bit pragmatic with it all, and that's hard, right? Like if you've been training super hard for something and you get an injury at the wrong time, but it's about looking at the things that you can control and manage, getting good people around you and good, whether it's physios or doctors or whatever. I found myself a great physio who was very like, okay, well, in a normal person, we would do this. But because you've got this and this is how I want you to do it. So surrounding yourself with good professionals. I think mentally what's hard is, if you've got a trajectory or a plan of competitions or things that you're going to do and then it's got to go elsewhere, that can be difficult to manage. But I think for me, it was the path was going to be this way, but now it's going to be via this way, and what will be, which sounds a bit Freudian, but that's kind of how I operated, yeah.
It's that flexibility, right?
Yeah, you have
of being
to be.
able to be like, okay, well, it's not going to be this way. You're going to be able to adjust.
And that's the reality of karate, right?
Yeah,
if you, especially as a kumite athlete, you don't have a lot of control.
No.
You can go in there with a plan, but if somebody doesn't react to the way that you are pushing or pulling or you're fake or whatever, you have to be adaptive.
Yeah.
So we are adaptive creatures naturally by being a kumite athlete. We probably don't realise it.
It's true.
Really is.
No, thank you for asking that question. I think it will help a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we got one more special one here.
Here we go.
With Sensei Marco Mazzanti.
G'day,
Super
Michelle.
coach.
Yeah, super coach.
This is my super coach.
Good to see you, Michelle. Just a quick question about, for young competitors, what do you suggest should be the focus for them, sort of starting out in competition and also, having a long career like yourself?
Career. Yeah. Honestly, I think for me, like for young kids, there's so many resources out there now, right, with social media and seeing, people like Mitch and those guys achieving amazing things, which is great, but I think it's also about being a bit realistic. So if you're starting out, you're probably not going to win your first, state championships or national championships or go overseas in the first year. So maybe sitting down with your coach, having, some conversations about what your goals are. I was a big goal writer, and it's okay as well if those things don't happen. But I think it's about setting achievable goals. And sometimes, it doesn't go to plan, reevaluating those, having a chat with your coaches and the people around you and going from there. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think, building up that fortitude like yourself they'll be able to sort of go through all the challenges that are, in front of us as competitors, and coaches and so on.
Yeah.
I think, as you say, realistic goals is really important.
Yeah, and sometimes you can do all the right things and, we've all seen it. You don't get a good draw, a decision doesn't go your way. It doesn't define you, as a person. You just got to pick yourself up and keep on going,
That's it.
Excellent.
Yep.
Excellent.
Thank you, Sensei. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got a few more questions around here.
No,
Yeah,
great,
come on.
good.
Come on.
Okay.
Come on, Maxi Noble.
There was something else on your list, I can't remember.
There's
what it was. Yeah.
there is something on the list I want to talk about,
okay,
but
good.
we've got some questions here. Yeah, go on, Max. State your name and address.
My name's Max Noble. What's your most memorable moment from karate?
So if I had to pick one, it's absolutely my first national championships as a senior. But also, now that I reflect, because I got a similar question earlier, but now that I'm reflecting, I didn't win, just to correct you from your previous podcast, I didn't win any Oceanas until after I had my kids.
So
as a
it was
senior.
after? All
Everything
of them
was after. So it's a bit of a loser before I became a mum, as it turns out. But I think, for me, that first one, I had my girls with me. And I can't remember if you guys were there. It was a nightmare. They were 2, they were screaming. They were just being horrible kids. So I just really had to not horrible kids, It was probably 8 o'clock
They were
at
just
night.
kids,
They'd been
right?
at a venue all
Yeah.
day in there too. But, just having to block all of that out. So I think just being able to put things in compartments. I'd had so many silver and bronze Oceania senior medals. I'd won team events.
Oh, yeah.
But, so maybe that one.
Nice.
Thanks,
Maxi. It's so good. All the achievements and stuff like that is fantastic, and I think it's really special to share.
I think I've forgotten some of them. It's kind of nice.
Yeah,
to go through.
I think it's going down memory lane. I think we
Yeah.
were talking before, to get you on here to go through. You
Yeah.
don't really keep a record or posters on the
Nah.
wall or frame your medals and stuff like that. You're just not that type of
No.
person, which
Don't
is
even
why
have some of
what
them.
makes you so amazing. But I think it's really important to highlight journeys like yours to say that, hey, you're not always going to win at the right time or the time that you want,
Yeah.
but and things don't always happen the way you want it, but mentally, if you are there and you're dedicated,
And I think regardless of the level that you're at, you'll always have those moments where it looks like you don't know karate, and that's what it looked like, when I fought in Paris at that time. Everything had gone right, but my headspace was, I wasn't in the right place. And I look back at it and I'm like, I literally look like I don't know what I'm doing, and it's just, things don't always happen, but it does sound, a little bit wanky, but everything happens for a reason, and I'm a big believer in that. And if it's not your time, it's not your time, and it'll happen when it's supposed to.
Yeah.
My grandma was a really wise old Irish lady, and she always used to say,
You're Irish?
she'd say 2 things. My grandma is Irish,
Oh,
yes.
I had
There you
no
go.
idea.
Yeah, I was going to say something really funny, but it's not for the podcast.
Okay, maybe not
Yeah.
for this podcast. Yeah.
But yeah, she'd say 2 things, and I love both of them. She would say, the wheel always turns a full circle, and it might not turn, at the speed that you want it to, but everything happens for a reason. And the other one that she would say, which I think people that know me really well, is you can't polish a turd. So if it's crap, it's crap, right? You just got to own it. I didn't
different-
perform well. They're both completely
It's so
different.
different.
And if you knew her, then, well, she's kind of like an older version of me. But, I think sometimes you just have to acknowledge, I didn't perform, or it didn't go right. And, there's positives that you can take out of it, but we don't have to overemphasize it. I don't know, we saw the Olympics, because I've been having no sleep and watching it all, but there was the synchronised divers.
Oh, man.
And the girl,
that was rough.
slipped, and she's just what do you do? It happens sometimes. And I think, particularly for kata, that will happen, probably more so for kumite. You got a bit more of an opportunity to fix things, but you got to take the good moments with the bad moments, and very rarely do you see someone that just has a straight, trajectory to success. And if they do, good on them, amazing, superhuman, but also probably they luck out on the experience, because it's the ups and downs and that helps build that resilience and that determination. And I think when you do actually, win that senior national championship for the first time after being in the finals so many times, it means so much more. Whereas if you just win, you're like, oh yeah, cool,
This is
I'm
my
awesome.
normal, yeah.
And you don't know how to lose, there's all those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's so good. So that kind of really sums up your philosophy around competition, and I think that's really quite beautiful, and taking the good with the bad and just going along for the ride and growing as a person. But what I had jotted down before was like your philosophy around Australian karate, and we are, whether we like it or not, we are different than the French or the Egyptian or Iranian or Turkish team. We are different in that sort of that space in the sport. Just wanted to get your sort of take on like how you think we should be treating our approach to international, because we want to be competitive on the world stage again. We used to be a very formidable force on the world stage.
And again, it's kind of like we've had some success and then it's dipped down and it's up and down. I think it's kind of there's two things, right? Like one, you've got to put yourself out there. It's just my opinion, but I think if you keep yourself in Australia, that's going to be hard. For a few reasons. Like one, it's good to see other people compete. It's good to get to know the referees and for them to get to know you and to see the other coaches. And depending on what kind of athlete you are, not being intimidated because you see like a world champion warming up in the warm-up area, and everyone looks good in the warm-up for the most part.
Absolutely.
But just those sorts of things. So like familiarising yourself with the environment. So I think you kind of have to do that. I don't think you need to overdo it though. So I think if you're at that international stage of your career, having focused camps or making the most of if you've got to go to a Premier League training afterwards is really important. But I think the flip side to that is like and it took me a really long time to realise this, you can't just discount yourself because you're from Australia. We are just as good as majority of the athletes. They might have more resources, they might have more competition opportunity, but we're all pretty much we're learning the same things. They might have bigger factories of athletes and those sorts of things, but so it's that balance between not going in there super cocky, but we are just as good as those people. And I think because they have, particularly in Europe, they have so many more opportunities to compete. And we were talking about it the other week, but I really distinctly remember seeing Haruna absolutely tear the competition apart one week. And I was lucky enough to be staying, overseas for a couple of weeks. And then the next week, literally lost 8-0 in the first round. Walked off like, nothing had happened, couldn't have cared less. Because for them, there's not so much pressure and hype, and there's so many competitions. There's so much opportunity that it doesn't really matter. For them, it's like, you go to Victoria one week and compete, and there's so you can't read too much into that, or don't, your one performance doesn't define you, and they just get way more opportunity. Not type of, it's volume of opportunity, I guess. So yeah, I think that's probably one thing. I know you said for two things, but I'm going to go for a third one because
go one more.
I've got ideas.
Go one more.
I think as well here in Australia, and it's definitely changed, and I think it's leadership from you and some of the other guys and girls in particular, but we really have to present as a unit. We won't succeed, I don't believe, if everybody's going off on their own, on their own journey. And we're an individual sport for the most part. Now there's team worlds.
It's hard, right?
But it is hard because you want to be selfish, but then also you can't be so selfish that it's at the detriment of everybody else. Like, you're only as good as the people you train with and the people that are around you. So that culture, I think, has to continue in the direction that it is at the moment. I've been part of teams where everyone's a real unit, like tight-knit unit, and everyone gets along, and there's been mixed success, and that's fine. But I have also been part of teams where everybody's in it for themselves, and it's not fun, So I think that what you guys are doing with Kaizen Culture, and just even the way you guys get together and train and all of those sorts of things, it's so important. And I don't think we'll succeed without it.
Yeah, that is awesome to hear. It's especially from someone like yourself that's been around and experienced both sides of it, because it it is nice when you're travelling with a team and you're training with a team, and you can share that experience even though you're an individual.
And look, I'll call it out. There was a question earlier about, how do you get more women and girls to compete? Girls are notorious for this, right? Like they don't get they see themselves as competition, and there's like so much, research around how the media's, influence that and all the rest of it. But, we have to present as a unit. Like if we have people going out there going, oh, well, I hope that person doesn't win, or I did better than them, it's fraught, right? It's just not going to be successful. And I really admire the work that's going into building that cohesive unit, because, we won't succeed without it.
Oh, that's a really, really nice way to wrap up there, Mish.
Yeah.
I know you probably hated every second of this.
A little bit. It's been okay. No,
so it was a bit chaotic.
it's all right.
It was,
I feel like
you say,
it's a good summary of
it's a summary of the theme of this
yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
Like I think the ups and
Calm
downs
in
of
the
competition,
chaos.
and you've got to be able to be flexible. So this is the first ever get to know episode with Mish Wilson, and I just can't thank you enough for.
Can I say one more thing?
All right. Yeah,
I didn't get to. I thought that this would probably come up, but in terms of like one thing that we as a group, and I'm sure this is on your list for the get to know, series. I can't have an opportunity to speak without mentioning Christina Marr.
Yep.
And so, like, I first travelled with Chris in '97, and she was at my last competition as well. Like, Australia needs to embrace that history a lot, but also, like, out of that, I created a lifelong friend, and you guys will have lifelong friends through that. But, she is our most recent world champion, and we need to look at all the things that she has created for our sport. And, like, the friendship and the belief that it can come from Australia by doing it in a slightly different way, I think is something we can all learn from. So
yeah, we want to try and keep that as close to our hearts as possible.
Correct.
Keep
Yeah,
her around.
yeah.
We love Chris. She's as crazy as she is. We love her to bits.
Yeah.
As crazy as you are, we love you to bits. All right.
Anyway.
But we really want to make sure that we're doing the best that we can to keep everyone in the sport for as long as possible, whether you're competing or coaching or refereeing
and
or
keep
anything.
them around.
Yeah,
right?
we just want to celebrate what you've done. We've barely scratched the surface of what you've done throughout your time, and obviously when we chat with Chris, it's the same thing. We're not going to do it justice in an hour.
It gives the country that belief, right? Like you winning the bronze medal in Morocco, everyone's just like, hang on a minute, like that. I know him, he's like me, we compete in the same things, I can do this. And so, there's pockets of those examples that we just have to hold on, and, the future for karate is bright, so I'll leave it there.
That's really nice. Thanks, Mish. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming
having
on.
me.
And we'll see you very soon.
You will.
Thanks. Yay. Wowee. Oh, no. Wait, can we have like 2 more minutes just to squeeze this in? Yeah? Actually, before we do that, we'll cut this in.
Yeah,
we'll cut this in nicely. All right? This is, I think it's quite actually special to mention. You take the lead on this one.
Do I have to just like do
Yeah,
it?
like
So
say
can you
whatever
see?
say. We're gonna do this closer, but
Oh, okay, cool. So obviously 50th Nationals.
yep.
Pretty exciting. I don't know how many of them that I've been at, but we, as the board, have been given this, we'll do a close-up thing afterwards, but it's all of the pins from all of the, from all the time. So some of them say Australia Karate Federation, some of them have, the modern version of the logo. And it's a pretty cool little memento for
That's cool.
where karate has, I think it really accurately shows kind of where we've been visually.
Yeah, this is really cool. Which one's your favourite?
Well, I like the old school, the middle old school
The
one,
circle,
the round one.
the circular.
Yeah,
Oh my God, it's not turning.
it's probably got a little magnet
Does it open?
situation on the back. It does, yeah. There's some pens in there
some
as well.
pens. Wow,
But yeah. And I also, that coincides with my favourite tracksuit, the one that had the stars, the Southern Cross stars.
Oh, the one, that was my first tracksuit.
Yeah.
That was
There
my
you go.
first
My
tracksuit.
favourite.
That's nuts. Yeah,
So
this is
there you
awesome.
go.
Thank you so much for sharing this. And once again, thanks, Michelle.
Pleasure.